Good afternoon. I am Nsenga Burton, founder and editor in chief of the Burton Wire, and welcome to our NMPA Black Press USA live stream today on November 23rd, 2022, the day before Thanksgiving. We are very excited today to be back because we've been on hiatus for a little while because we've been out and about celebrating our 10-year anniversary. And we are happy to be back in the studio today with one of my favorite people on the planet. I think Booker, like if I have like maybe like 10 favorite people, he's in the top 10 list on the planet. For those of you who do not know who I'm talking about, and I don't know why you wouldn't, his name is Booker T. Mattison. Booker is an author and filmmaker who wrote and directed The Sound of Christmas, which premieres on all BET platforms. Thanksgiving, that's tomorrow. Set your date, get your trial, whatever you got to do. Make sure you watch this film because it's really good. It has Neo, it has Soraya. Both of course, Neo's iconic R&B recording artist, as is Soraya. The film is an adaptation of Tiffany L. Warren's novel, The Replacement Wife, and stars both of those outstanding individuals. Booker wrote and directed the film adaptation of Zora Neale Hurston's classic story, The Gilded Sixbix, which aired on Showtime. That starred Chad Coleman. You might know Chad from The Walking Dead or The Wire, and that was his first leading role in a film. The film also starred iconic Takia Crystal Kima, That's So Raven and Living Color fame, and of course the iconic Wendell Pierce, The Wire, Treme, and pretty much anything that's been fantastic in the last 20 years. Wendell Pierce has been a part of. The Hollywood Reporter has said that Booker's work and direction and feel for Hurston's characters match up to Hurston's sterling piece of fiction full of atmosphere and strongly developed characters. If you've heard Booker's name, it may not just be because of his films. It could be because he's also a published author. Snitch was one of his major publications. And I think Unsigned Hype was his first publication. And then, let's see, what do we have? We had Unsigned Hype, we had Snitch. Oh, and then he's also a college professor, which you all know. He's been at Hampton, he's been at Brooklyn College, he's been at Regent University. He's currently at UGA, University of Georgia, in the Entertainment and Media Studies Department, where he teaches directing, screenwriting, and a production capstone. So without further ado, please, please, please welcome this outstanding filmmaker, a great friend, and an HBCU graduate, Norfolk State University, NYU Tisch School of the Arts graduate, Booker T. Mattison.
That was a stellar introduction. I mean, I'm listening to it and I'm saying to myself, oh my goodness, she makes it all sound so great. So it's good to be on with you. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, me too. And Booker, I just got to put this out here. I've had several requests from the ladies. So, we got to tell wifey, you're still a hot commodity, but I got to tell, because I love your wifey, who you still call your girlfriend. I got to put it out there. He's not available, ladies. He is happily married. He's the father of 4. He is a family man. He's dedicated and devoted. And so I'm sorry, y'all can just stop texting me. He's not available. Okay. All right. So there we go. All right, Booker, let's get to it. All right. So let's start first. Let's ease into talking about the movie that is coming on tomorrow on BET platforms. Again, as I said, if you don't have BET, if you don't have BET Plus, sign up for the free trial and check out this movie. I guarantee you'll love it. All right. So how did you decide you wanted to be a filmmaker?
Well, it was less a decision that occurred in an instant. It was more something that developed over time. I started my higher education journey at Tidewater Community College in Virginia Beach. Mm-hmm. And at that time, which was, I don't know, what was that, 1990 or so, you had to choose a major before you could register. So I'm rifling through the bulletin looking for the discipline with the least amount of math. So that's how I chose radio and television production. Now, let's talk about the influence, you're a professor as well, of an effective professor and how that can impact the culture, generations, etc. So it was a ginger British professor, Alan Campbell, who I reconnected with just via email. And he got his Ph.D. from Regent, believe it or not. But he was so enthusiastic about radio and television production, that it inspired an interest in me. And that's when I first started doing visual communication, visual storytelling. A year after I started at community college, the state stopped funding the program at TCC. For those of you who don't know, and you of course know this, chairing a department, it's an expensive department to have on campus, because you have, not only do you need equipment and facilities, you have to constantly update them. So, and also the state wants to avoid redundancy as well. So in this instance, the program was a victim of redundancy on the one hand, but also the expense of the program on the other. So I transferred to Norfolk State. They had a 4-year mass communications program. And my goal at that point was to be a reporter and then work my way up and be an anchor. I wanted to be like on a national show like 2020 or something like that. My junior year, I have a Virginia Association of Broadcasters internship at the ABC affiliate in Norfolk. I'm excited. I get a check and I get to perform all the tasks, much of it making air because of the distinction of the internship. But here's what I discovered at the end of that wonderful experience interning at Channel 13, the ABC affiliate in Norfolk. Rather than covering other people's stories, I wanted to tell my own. And at that point, I wasn't even aware of the concept of film school. It wasn't even something that was in my, consciousness that even existed. So I researched film programs, and it wasn't until that my junior year of undergrad that film became a thing for me.
Okay, so junior year, film becomes a thing for you. How do you end up at NYU, one of the top, if not the top, film production programs in the world, certainly in the United States?
Let's do it.
How did you end up at NYU?
That's a great question, which allows me to introduce my rap career. So, look, it's funny. And look, the way that you laughed, the way my students laugh when I tell them I used to rap, they see the bald, graying beard, old dude, used to rap. Okay, right. But at the time, I was actually seriously pursuing a rap career. This was it was 1995. Well, when I was a junior, it was 1993.
Everybody wanted to be a rapper back then, including me.
Right. There you go.
That's why I'm
laughing. So do you use your name, like, your name that, people who know you on your shows, or you Dr. Burton on here?
I'm Dr. Burton, but you can call me Kilo because you know
me. Right. Okay. So that's how I met you at NYU.
Yes.
But circling back, so I was seriously pursuing a rap career. I was an MC. I made beats, and I was nice with the human beatbox. I can't rhyme anymore. I can't make beats anymore. I can still, rip a mean human beatbox. I'm not going to do one on here.
Come on, Booker. No, you can't say that. And then
I had to preempt. I had to preempt the no before I even let it come out. I had to filter it out. So the East Coast West Coast rap feud was in full swing, and it was a serious thing. And everyone knows, anyone who knows anything about hip hop history knows how intense and serious and real that was. Now it's T-shirts and listening to Biggie and Pac on Spotify. It was different. It was a serious thing back when we were living through it. So to that end, it was the top two programs: USC, University of Southern California, NYU. I was planning on getting a record deal when I was at film school, so I didn't apply to USC because I didn't want to come out and people think I was a West Coast rapper. I did East Coast hip hop. Seriously.
That's right. That's legit, especially the 90s.
So even if I would have had the East Coast sound that I did have, and if I would have been at USC and got signed and come out, I'm like on the West Coast, it wouldn't have mattered what my sound was. I still would have been a West Coast rapper who had an East Coast sound, and that wasn't me. So that's how I applied and got in, which was cool. And that's how I got into NYU. And here's something I want to point out about my experience at NYU. The training that I got as a mass communications major at Norfolk State, and it was ENG, electronic news gathering, audio recording, and the like. News gathering, that prepared me to make the transition from nonfiction to fiction, because I'm still learning competencies in framing and lighting and recording audio, etc. So I was well prepared, even though it was still an adjustment going to NYU.
Mhm.
But it was a wonderful experience because I met people like yourself.
Yeah, I was just thinking about Phil and a couple of other people who had news backgrounds when they came to the program, and how people don't think that that actually is a qualifier for getting into a film school. You know, you can have a news background and it will work for you. So you are in New York, and you know you're doing everything because you know when you're an independent filmmaker too, because you are an independent filmmaker who's now doing kind of I would say mainstream work. Um, but when you're an independent filmmaker, you kind of do lots of different things, right? When you're very entrepreneurial, so you could be rapping, you could be getting that producing money, making some music videos, shooting this, doing that, writing this, writing that. Who were your mentors though? Who was the person that you were looking up to? Was there anyone who took an interest in you? Any alums, you know, from Norfolk State, that kind of stepped up? Like who was your crew?
You know, it's interesting, you know, when that question is presented, and the answer is it was my dad first and foremost because of, and again, independent of specifically film and television, and also my mom, my parents, the ultimate combo that birthed four of us, myself, my two brothers, and my sister. You know, I had a fantastic upbringing, and the training that my mom and dad gave, not just me but all of us. It prepared me in ways that we often come up with models that are based upon deficiencies. So, you know, and then that can become normative. And what I mean by that is a lot of the things like, you know, mentors and influences, my mom and dad were such profound presence, you know, in my life. It really started with them, them what they modeled, how they trained us, but then also how they encouraged us and prepared us for launch, which is the most important thing.
Hmm.
So, you know, you know, all of my siblings, we all do something different. You know, I'm a filmmaker and a professor. My older brother is an executive or a defense contracting firm. Then I have a brother my other brother is CFO, and my sister, you know, she's a teacher and educator. Um, so we all do different things. So our folks didn't, you know, say, "Hey, we want you to do this or that." They provided the conditions that made it that we were equipped to launch. So
Hmm.
in doing that, you know, telling stories and having fun, and having a broad imagination and playing games was something that was encouraged. My father was a, you know, a musician, an artist, and a creative. You know, my mother was an extraordinary communicator and administrator. So all of those skills I utilize, you know, if you're producing, if you're writing, if you're directing, if you professing,
Absolutely.
even doing this Zoom call, everyone's not comfortable in front of a camera and then able to answer questions, you know, succinctly enough that, you know, you're not rambling and, you know, getting off subject. It's so people are so some people are better at that than others, and you know that mass communications training, as you well know, certainly was a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the books because I think we were always in touch, but we reconnected at a book fair because you were there. Tanana Reeve Dew was there.
Congressional Black Caucus Author Pavilion, Kwame.
Hey,
That
yeah,
that panel was the number of books sold on there, not mine. And that panel now is, you know, it would crush the whole building.
right. Yeah. So tell me, how did you decide to write books? I mean, because you know you're a filmmaker, you just
Right.
graduated from NYU. I think people have a false impression of going to film school and what that does for your career because you still have to put in the work and you still have to put in the time and you still have to kind of you have to especially when you're black succeed and work your way into the industry. You know, even the independent industry, right? You know, in New York, which you know, one thing I did love about the independent industry in New York is that I felt like I worked all the time because you know you just go from one project to the next project to the next project to the next project because there was so much independent filmmaking happening in New York, especially when we were there.
That's right.
But how did you decide to kind of pivot and go ahead and write this book while you were on your way to becoming the paid film
Right.
director
That's a great question.
are now?
Yeah, and I call myself the accidental novelist, and
Hmm.
I say that because, you know, though I started writing my first novel when I was 9, but I didn't know I was writing a novel, and I can circle back to that in a moment.
Hmm.
I call myself the accidental novelist because Adrian Ingram, who was a friend and then was my first literary agent, I met her through Stacey Holman. You know Stacey,
Yes, yeah, I know Stacy.
your homie,
Awesome, amazing person.
precisely. So I met them, the Harlem community, it wasn't a film thing, but Adrian knew that I was a filmmaker, and she came, to some screenings that I had. One was at remember Show World,
Yes.
your place at Times Square,
Mhm.
mid '90s. Again, for those who weren't there before, Times Square became, Disney. It was like a lot of peep shows, and it was a lot. So part of what so in the transition into getting all of that off of out of Times Square, the Giuliani administration, they required these peep shows, peep houses, to have community programming. So I actually screened, I forget which movie it was, but I love telling the story because there's no such thing as Show World anymore. But if you
Mhm.
walk down, what was it, 8th Avenue, 42nd Street, you saw the Show World
That's right.
screen. I forget, I don't know if it was Exit 13 or the Gilded Six Bits in Show World. So Adrian came to that screening,
Mhm.
the Show World. And no, you didn't watch the movie through a peephole. It didn't work like that. Uh, so So Adrian started hiring me because she was working as a publishing consultant at the time. So a publisher would say, "Hey, we have a vision for a book about this," and then she would go out and find the author and get the proposal done, and boom, she would essentially producing it. I mean, there's no, you don't call a person producing in the publishing game, but that's essentially what she was doing. I guess executive producing.
Mhm. Mhm.
She would hire me to serve as a contributing author on like the first book on. HBCUs. I'll find a way to make one. So historically black colleges and universities. Which shout out Stacy when she did her. She was researching for her film. That was one of the films that she researched. So the books that she researched. How cool! She's calling me up. Hey, right? And we go back, to NYU, which is cool.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's CAU Clark Atlanta University's motto: find a way or make one.
I'll
Anyway.
find a way to make one. That's right, precisely. Um, so I was at the time, Malcolm Lee, who was a classmate, he was attached to produce this script that I had written, but he was in Louisiana doing. It was two movies in a row. It was the one with Samuel L. Jackson and
He used by you.
no, no, the ones that Malcolm did. I can't believe I'm forgetting the names, but he was doing two movies. He did back to back in Louisiana. So we were doing a whole development piece, but of course that all stops because he's directing. Welcome Home, Roscoe Jenkins,
Yes.
and
Yes.
um, the one with Sam Jackson and Bernie Mac.
I'm having a brain for. The brothers movie. It was the Soul Man.
Oh man, right, right. So yeah, he did those back. So bottom line, he ain't thinking about no developing, no script with me. He's doing, not only a film, but he's a couple, which is amazing to be able to do that.
Mhm.
So essentially, I'm without, and like you're talking about the gig economy, I didn't have any gig going. I was writing. That's what I was doing. And so Adrian, and this wasn't an agent thing yet, or even a book contract thing or anything. She said that so one of her contacts in the industry was looking for a young adult novel that wasn't didn't have all the sex and the violence, and because YA now is like it's. I mean,
Wide
what are they not talking about on YA?
right.
The only difference is it's not content and subject matter; it's the age of the characters. That's the only difference. I
Right.
mean, I'm being facetious, but not quite. But anyway,
Mhm.
so I came up with a story that was based on when I was trying to make it as an MC, and I become friends with Frankie Cutlass, Puerto Rico,
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
shake what your mama gave you. And he really shared some really wild and funny stories of him, coming up in the rivalries and of like artists who became something. I'm not gonna say the names, but just hilarious
Mhm.
and crazy too. So I came up with this story of Tori Tyson, the protagonist of Unsigned Hype, based upon that. And that book is not autobiographical, but I did borrow very liberally from my own life as far as the characters, where the story is set in Mount Vernon, New York. And if you know me really well, especially if you're my family member, you'll read that book and know all the names and places, even though again it's not an autobiographical book. So I wrote that manuscript on spec. Adrian sent it around to a couple of publishers, and there was this interest. So she was like, "Hey, I'll be a literary agent." I'm like, "Cool." But for me, relationship precedes business. That's the way I like to do it. I mean, it's not always possible to do that, but
Yeah.
that's the ideal way, to start a relationship. So I got a 2-book deal. It was Unsigned Hype, which when I wrote it, it was the autobiography of Tory Tyson, which I still think is a better title. But they didn't want people to see the title and get confused and think it was like an autobiography and put it in the wrong section. That would have been hot though, right? Unsigned.
Yep, 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 yep.
So the 2-book deal was for the autobiography of Tory Tyson, which became Unsigned Hype, and a second adult novel, which Snitch is, that had yet to be written, and that, of course, was Snitch. So those are my 2 novels, and I'm writing a third now, actually trying to get it published. So I have the 2 novels, still trying to make those into film and television
I
shows.
was gonna say, how come Unsigned Hype? I mean, Snitch was a great book. I mean,
It,
like, what's the
various
what's the
attachments
hold
over
up?
the years. Various attachments over the years.
Mhm,
Early on when the book first came out, when the heat is the most intense, me being a screenwriter, I'm like, yo, I'm going to write the script. But being real, at that time, you're talking, this is 2011, I wasn't ready to do that,
mhm,
not as I could have done that as an independent where I'm in complete control of the process.
mhm.
You have a producer involved, right, who is developing that material so that it's in a place that they're comfortable pitching it to their, contacts, then that's a different relationship to the material than if you were being the auteur and doing it independently.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. So, how does writing the books work or help you pivot? I mean, you were never outside of the industry, but pivot into directing in the industry. How did that help you do that,
You know,
or did it, or
d
did it?
well, directing every I consider myself a student of the human condition, and so everything that I live and experience, learn, intuit, communicate, teach, what have you, I utilize that when I'm directing. I mean, you're literally creating. I mean, a film shoot itself is like a small city. You have security, you have food concerns and insurance concerns and health. It's like running a small city. But then also your world building within the context of the narrative. So all of these experiences, anything that I do that either I experience or gives me depth of understanding human beings, is fodder for, in the moment when I need to, to give an actor an image or an objective to illuminate their performance.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, so how did we? I know we're jumping over a bunch of stuff, and we'll
Sure,
go back. We'll go back and get it.
sure.
And if you have questions for Booker, this is the time to ask. Like, put them in the chat. But how did you end up? Because I know you did the 2 books. I know that you've done these amazing short films as well.
Mhm.
James Whitfield says, "God bless." But how did you end up, or how did you end up doing this movie for BET?
Ah, The Sound of Christmas.
The Sound of Christmas.
Shout out to Tiffany L. Warren,
Yes.
who wrote the novel, The Replacement Wife, which was published in 2014.
Mhm.
And she's also an executive producer on the film. She pitched the idea with me attached, to write and direct the screenplay. So she presented me um, and gave me the opportunity. She put me on. So
Yes, that was a well-received book. So when you were deciding on the screenplay, and you can talk about this too, because I know you teach this.
sure,
When you're translating kind of a novel to a screenplay, from script to screen, or from a book to screen, um,
right.
what are some of the things you need to consider in order to kind of stay true to like Tiffany's work, to the actual book, but also to make it more palatable for screen audiences? What are
Sure.
some of the things you have to do?
That's an excellent question. And I taught when I was at Regent I taught in the MFA program primarily at Regent. But I did teach some undergraduate courses as well. But I taught a class, narrative adaptation, and that's what the class was about. And the primary challenge is you have a 300-page book that has to become a 90-page script. and you can't just say, "Put the book on the screen." I call novels a complete art form in that when the author finishes the work, the reader reads, and that's the end of the relationship. Okay,
Mhm.
imagination can ensue. Contrast that with the screenplay, which is essentially a blueprint for a movie, which is the complete art form. So it's a very different process of communicating and also storytelling. The additional, and I don't want to call it a challenge because it was a pleasure to do it, but the additional, I guess, standard that I held myself to in this particular instance is the fact that Tiffany and I are friends, and I'm also an author. So this notion that this is, source material that I'm going to, then take and come up with some vision, separate and apart from what the author intended, just wasn't going to happen.
Mhm.
So in that instance, when we started working on this, you know, it was okay. The first step is to come up with a treatment, and the treatment is the story, the visual story, the cinematic story that you're pulling from the book. And that's gonna necessitate cutting characters, adding characters, combining characters, making adjustments, to sundry things because it's two different art forms essentially. A novel and a movie. Those are two different art forms.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's the greatest challenge is coming up with a story that actually works because you can have a book that works, and if the cinematic story doesn't work, then the movie fails. So that was the first hurdle. So, I wrote the treatment and everything that I wrote, boom, I sent it to Tiffany, "Yo, what do you think?"
Mhm.
Right? It's,
Mhm.
book. So it's her book, and she put me on, right? So, boom, what do you think?
Mhm. Mhm.
X, Y, and Z. So essentially,
Respect.
she
Respectful.
yeah, well, that
Collaboration.
end too, but the project hadn't been sold yet, is what I'm saying.
Right. Right.
It
Right.
wasn't like, nobody was, cutting no checks.
Mhm. Mhm.
We started this project on faith, literally, because when you start, developing, and writing, Tiffany and I both get paid to write. This is what we do for a living. But if we decide, boom, we're gonna start developing a project and no one's involved yet, that's faith because you could put in all this work and nobody buys it.
That is true. That is true.
What did you have? A dope screenplay, or so you think, on your laptop.
That's interesting. A good point to raise, Booker, because I don't think people understand that when you are a writer, that every time you do something that is not paid, you're literally taking money off out of the bank. So it's like people are like, oh, just write this or do that, and it's like, okay, so you do understand like the 10 hours I'm gonna spend on this
Mhm.
could be taking like $10,000 out of my pocket,
Right.
and I can't write this off. Right. But I don't think people understand that about writers. Like, if I'm going to, as you did with Tiffany, step out on faith, I think this is going to be a great project. Let's go ahead and put this time in. I'm going to devote 3 months to this. Then that's 3 months that you could have been devoting to something else that you know for sure was going to pay you.
Right.
Right. And so,
And the added in as a professor, this part, but for those who aren't in academe, so you have the yes, when you write and that you actually derive income from that, you're developing your budget based upon, projections, history, etc.
mhm.
So, not that you're spending money you don't have, but it's like, all right, boom, I'm an independent contractor, a free agent. Um, so there's that, the income component, but then as a professor, everything that you are doing is contributing to either getting tenure or maintaining it.
Right, 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 right.
So the notion of taking 3 months off for what will amount to nothing is not a gamble that you can afford to make,
That's right. That's right.
independent of the income that's coming in from it. So there's that twin deal. And the cool thing is, it's a musical. So, in the musical, and this is I've never written a musical before. I've never directed one either.
Mhm.
Right? But what did I do? I researched. I researched, and in the musical screenplay, you have, you put like a placeholder name, and then you'll have like, make clear what the tone or whatever it is of that song should be. So people are like, oh, did you write the songs? No, of course I didn't write the songs,
Mhm.
but I wrote where the songs would go.
Mhm. Mhm.
Just, so and so, some name you come up with, so the name, it's supposed to be, moodful and whatever. So, and then what was Tiffany doing? She was connecting Jonathan McReynolds, Myron Butler, who wrote and produced the original songs. Now, mind you, this is all this stuff is happening before anyone's involved.
Right, right.
So we're both working.
Mhm, mhm.
Because when you do the musical, okay, yeah, you have the script, but then those songs, and that's important too. You want to know what those songs sound like because that's a part of the narrative. So all this stuff is happening, right? Which is pretty cool. But what are we doing? You know, make it happen. She's actually functioning as an EP, but there was no EP distinction because there was no contracts. But
Right,
yes, she's EPing.
right,
She got the she got the screenwriter and the director and the two dudes who did the original Christmas songs.
right, right.
You know,
Well, I mean, not to layer on to your story, but I feel like because you have a musical background and you grew up around music, that you would be the perfect person
oh, I love
to direct a musical. You
you're
know
right.
what I mean?
You're,
So,
you're
you
100%
hadn't done it previously, it doesn't mean that you weren't able to do a great movie, and I think you can see that in how you direct this film. So, talk about casting. Like, how did you decide to go with Neo and Soraya, who's is fantastic. I'm having a brain fart on this other BET show. She's fantastic.
Kingdom Business.
Yes, Kingdom Business. Oh my god, I love that show. It's so good.
Yeah,
She's amazing in that too. But anyway, go
yeah.
ahead.
But Soraya is also in Black Mafia Family. She's
Yes,
in
Black
that.
Mafia Family too. Another.
Most people remember her when she exploded on the scene in Empire.
Yes.
Absolutely. Oh, that's Soraya.
Mhm.
And I think at that time I think she was going by Soraya McNeil at that time, but now she's
She's
dope enough that she goes by the one.
right.
Well,
She's the
hey,
only one. She's the only one.
right. Okay, so to answer your question, it was a combination. So the principals, the leads, Neo, Soraya, and Drea Michelle, that was Yanley Artie. Shout out to Yanley Artie, one of the producers. Ron Robinson, another of the producers, and them working their relationships, right? One of my favorite sayings to my students is relationship capital is more valuable than any currency.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of the collaborative art form that is film, right? People when they come to the table, they come with skills and relationships. So Yanley and Ron for our principals, our leads, and George Pierre was the casting director, and
Good old George.
right. Probably what 100% of Black film and TV shows that they shot in Atlanta, he's the casting director.
Everything. He cast everything.
And maybe 99.996322
Yes.
over
Yes. Yes.
389, maybe.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So George, George is well connected, and George is actually able to not just show you faces you've seen before, but to give you new faces you've never seen before. And Blake James, who plays um, um, I'm drawing a blanket. Daniel plays Daniel, Neo's character, Quentin's son.
Mm-hmm.
Diamond in the rough that no one had seen before. So the way that process worked, George would send self tapes that the actors read from the sides. And for those who don't know, the sides are the parts of the script that you pull and isolate, and you give those to actors, and they read those. And now much of auditioning is no longer in person; it's self tapes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The self tape. So Roxanne T. Mims, who plays Estelle, Quentin, Neo's mother in the film.
That's right.
Her from Greenleaf. Boy, I was so excited watching her. Blake James, which I already mentioned, who plays the son.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer Sears, who plays Alexis. Wow, that was incredible. And then one other. So Tressa Smallwood. Shout out to Tressa and Megamind, the production company behind the film. She actually does on is it Instagram Live or Facebook Live? Probably both. A live audition, like auditioning, and you don't have to have an agent. So she provides access to those who don't have agents or representation, which that's a huge gatekeeper.
Yes, absolutely. Gotta have an agent to get an agent.
You know what I'm saying? So Darlisha Perry, who plays Imani in the film,
Mm-hmm.
I saw her on the live that Tressa did, right whenever we were, because I think, the live was casting for our film, but it was also, I think, a couple other projects that Tressa was doing. She always has multiple projects going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was the combination. The producers, Yanley and Ron, uh, George Pierre and his connectedness and ability to unearth talent, and then sending the self tapes, and then I would choose from among those,
Mhm.
and even the live that it probably was Megamind, not Tressa, but it might have been both. I'm sure maybe she combines them, but the live Tressa did is how we found Imani. So that was a nice, you know, various ways of coming up with what I think is a stellar cast.
Yeah. So how do you direct someone like Neo, who is the captain of a big ship? He's in control
Excellent question.
of a whole lot of things. Like
It's an excellent question. And before I met him, we had a brief phone chat, and to his credit, he was very open to going where he needed to go,
mhm,
to being pushed. He was very open to that. So, for me as a director, when I'm going into it, because I want every actor to say that I'm an actor's director. So I'm not going into it saying, yeah, this is my vision, this is what I expect. I'm listening
mhm,
because my job is, I'm a coach. I'm Mike Tomlin, I'm a huge Steelers fan. I'm not
mhm.
on the field making plays. You know,
Right. Right.
my job is to put them in the position to win. So I'm listening. Why am I listening? So I can know what I have to do to get him in an emotional space that he can be comfortable performing and being. And the additional challenge, which it wasn't a challenge at all in this case, when you're dealing with someone who is like an international pop star like that, who
Mhm,
has a complete image that's been, you know, that people know for what, 15 years?
mhm. At least.
Sometimes, and not in this case at all, but sometimes those artists can't step outside of that image because either it makes them uncomfortable, or it's like, well, I'm this way as a singer or as a rapper, but no, I can't step out of that. I can give you that if you want that in your movie. Cool. That wasn't the case here at all. So it was a wonderful collaboration. So in my directing class, I liken the relationship between actor and director as a marriage.
Mhm,
So, and it is. So it's like from the moment you first meet that actor, it's a courtship happening. And then once you cast them, now you're married and you have to partner and create, this performance.
mhm.
So, it was because he had no ego and because he had no issue stepping outside of the Neo that we know as the, Grammy award winning, recording artist and songwriter. We were able to go there and really do some really special things.
Okay. All right. So, how did you get the chemistry between Neo, well, and Drea, but then Neo and Soraya as well?
Mhm. Well, the cool thing is that so Neo and Soraya had already been in the film before last year, and then I think they may have known each other through music, circles as well.
Okay.
That was great. And but beyond actors knowing each other,
Mhm,
as a director, this notion of chemistry is whenever the objectives are clear for actors. They know what they want, what they're pursuing, and whenever they are able to, not try to convince an audience they're feeling something, but they're authentically feeling it, then the camera doesn't lie, and that's what makes us get goosebumps,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
If that's all a part of the communication and the relational aspect of the between director and actor. So just like I didn't say, in the independent, the shorts that I do, I control everything,
mhm,
right? In
mhm,
this instance, it's like, some of these actors I chose, some of these actors someone else chose. Doesn't matter. It's just like the general manager, the football team that chooses the players, right? Mike Tomlin has to coach them up. He doesn't get to choose the players.
mhm,
They're paying
mhm.
his coach not to choose the players,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, for me, I had to first understand the characters and the story. And then once I could understand the characters in the story, I had to hear and see where they were going and only provide assistance where it was needed. If they're nailing it, which, they're rocking it, there's nothing for me to say or do. I just watch and enjoy.
Mhm, mhm. So tell us, what is the story on the Sound of Christmas? Without giving us the spoilers, of course, but tell
Yeah,
us.
no, it's the story of an out of work music teacher, Montana, played by Soraya, who has to manage budding romantic feelings when she takes a job nannying for the children of a rich billionaire right before Christmas.
Mm.
So she's able to, and he's mourning the loss of his wife. It's a fruit fly here. Must be some fruit over my folks' house. Maybe there's a banana over there. I could use a banana right now. And he's mourning the loss of his wife. So she, Montana, is able to bring love and music back into the household.
Mhm, mhm.
If that storyline sounds familiar, The Sound of Music was one of Tiffany's favorite movies growing up. So the story is inspired by The Sound of Music. And this was she did it as a stage play before it was a novel when she was living in Dallas. Then it became a novel, and now it's a film. So, this story has legs.
Yes, I was thinking that when I saw the title, "The Sound of Christmas," and then I was like, "Huh." And then when I read about it, and then I watched the trailer and all the other stuff, I was like, "Oh, okay. This it does. It definitely." I was thinking that, but I didn't necessarily say it. Yeah, it definitely had a Sound of Music feel to it, and then even this idea of musicals around holidays. Like, what is it about the holidays that makes it right for um, musicals? Like, um,
Well, the holidays and the Christmas holiday in particular is one of the few times where public worship is not frowned upon or vilified, right?
uh-huh.
You
Mhm,
can actually sing, these Christmas carols, and I mean specifically the ones that like "Joy to the World," "The Lord has come." You
mhm,
in spaces where people would look at you strange if you said "The Lord," you can sing that song because it's accepted as public worship because it's Christmas.
mhm,
So for that reason, I think that's also an element of these movies that we enjoy, not just watching the movies and being engrossed in the narrative like we do with any narrative film, but also singing these songs, right, which are associated with the warm and even troubling, right, depending on the song, feelings that we have in watching the movie.
mhm.
And with these movies hopefully also being evergreen, we're speaking that into existence.
Yes, 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 yes.
Right? What do you want every year? Yes, you wanna see it, come on, but you wanna hear people singing those songs. So, we and we have 3 Grammy winners in this film contributing to the music, which is incredible. Of course, we have Neo, who, is singing, then we have Jonathan McReynolds, a Grammy award-winning, gospel artist who wrote and directed "He Sent Me a King," and the composer, Teddy Bishop, is also, a Grammy winner. So, we have Grammy
What
winners
was
making
what
it
was that like? So, was Neo cool with working singing their songs?
100%. And the cool thing about it too is, well, one, Jonathan McReynolds. If you all don't know Jonathan McReynolds, just Google him and listen to any of his songs. He's remarkably talented. He actually said before he went to the studio, "I'm looking forward to singing this because look, game recognized game." But and I can tell you this: if the songs would have been whack, I'm sure Neil would be like, "Are you kidding me?" No, because he's look
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
he has dope songs of his own, and then he's written dope songs.
That's right. That's right.
So it's like he's not gonna be singing no whack. It's like he would have been like, okay, all right, listen, we got to work on the music, and then look, and then if you wanted him to do it, that was gonna be more coin. You got paid to act, not to write, the Grammy winners. You know what I'm saying? But again, that's a testament to Jonathan McReynolds. Again, for those of you who don't know, he's incredible. And the other part too is Jonathan McReynolds and Neo. They have the same. What do you call the different like the different parts, tenor and all that stuff?
Registers.
Okay, yeah, they have the same, but they're in the same register.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was just really wonderful to also be in the recording studio as an ex rapper who never made it. You know, it's it's still hip hop is still a part of me, right? So
Me
to be in
neither,
the
brother.
studio, it was great. Watching them do their things, it was wonderful.
I love it. Okay, so I want to ask you. One of the last questions I'm going to ask you is why people should watch this film. But I want to ask, what are your favorite holiday films? Like, what do you and your family watch?
See, that's the thing. Holiday films, they weren't something that I watched. And we don't do a holiday film thing, in my house. And here's what's crazy about like modern family viewing, and this, you each have your avatar and you click on it, and it's like you have your own cinematic universe, this, and you don't even watch things. Well, I'll tell you what, not Christmas movies, but all of the Marvel movies. What is I think my youngest said is 27 of them or 29.
Hmm.
Those are I guess and I don't sit around and watch them with him, but
Hmm.
those I guess are the movies that they will have playing over and over and over again. And wow, any holiday movies that we've ever watched as a family? I don't know that I can think of one. Uh,
Okay.
Yeah. So do you have like a particular tradition? Like, was it Thanksgiving?
Yeah,
Or
like we watch The Wiz, I don't know,
I do love The Wiz. Oh,
and
my landlord and one of my landlord from Harlem, Miss Fran, God rest her soul. She was
mhm.
actually one of the singing, the big scene where they with the big long table. She's one of the extras in
Oh my gosh,
in
yes,
that, yeah. So
yes.
yeah, The Wiz is definitely a dope film, but I can't say that we like watch that joint every year, but it's a great film.
Yeah, yeah, we watch The Wiz, and we do, I always do like a blaxploitation film festival during the holidays.
Oh,
So
really?
my friends and my family, oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Look, I was gonna say, how can Sound of Christmas get in on that? But I guess it could be a black
Yes, yes, yes.
exploitation musical.
A black era film, yes, a black era film, yes. And then I'm blanking on the Christmas movie that the brother did last year that was fantastic.
Jingle Jangle.
Jingle Jangle. Oh my god, I
Yeah,
love
it was
that.
magical, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Kai
Mhm.
didn't like it. My daughter was afraid of it. She thought it was
Ooh. Well, and you know what? And similarly, what makes a good Christmas film, it's
Mhm.
not just the celebration and the happy, but it's the weightiness. Because
Yes,
the deliverance that always happens in these movies, if the weightiness isn't intense, then we don't really care. There's no consequences, no stakes. So I
yeah.
can see how some of those heavier themes, for someone her age, it could be like, hey, wait a minute, let me pull back a little
Yeah,
bit.
she was out of there in like 15
Right.
minutes. But I watched it multiple times, and I was like, I told everybody to watch it. But I think that so I say all that to say because I really believe that this film is going to become one of those films
Oh wow.
that we watch each year, and that will say, "Oh, I got to see this version of this film," because it's fun, and I think what's also great about it is it does have iconic people like Neo in it. Soraya, who is in my mind like blown, right? like
Look,
on
I'm glad we got it when we did, because her
right, right. I mean
right,
it's over, right? It's over. Like she's not gonna she's on another path, right? So just to be able to see her when she's still kind of and not that she won't be hungry because she'll be in the industry, so you're always got to be hungry, but to kind of see her doing things where people really are appreciating who she is, appreciating her talents and her skills, and allowing her to really develop them, in a safe space with a great director and a wonderful writer and an EP like Tiffany and all of the things. I think is why this movie is going to be a classic. That and of course the songs, and then it's just like it's a classic story, like a Christmas story.
that's right.
So,
And it's all about, as we know as professors, it's all about story.
yes, 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 yeah. And what's great about the movie is that the narrative is strong. So and it is like because part of the pleasure we find in movies, which people always fight, like we always talk about this as scholars, like what people say they want to see relative to what they really watch are two different things,
That's right, that's
right?
right, that's right,
And
yeah.
this is a movie that people will watch too, right? It's like I want to see such and such, but you don't come look at this because you want to see what Drea does, right? You're gonna come look at this because you want to see what Neo does, right? So it's not all deep necessarily. It's like it's a
It's very
watch.
primal, it's
It's
very primal.
Yes, it's entertaining. I want to see how these people perform. I want to see what my dude Booker does with this film. And as you go on to make other films and to finish your next novel and all of the things like that. But yeah, I think that this we need more films that are black and I will say wholesome. I hate to appear judgmental because I'm not. I have a broad.
I don't see that as a judgment, that's an observation. There's a
Yes,
difference.
we need some films that the family can watch,
Right,
that young people
that's right,
can watch with their grandparents. My grandmother's 92. I would like to find something I can watch this with her.
right,
So I think it's important. I can watch this with my 7-year old.
that's right.
Um, so I think we sometimes forget about that, especially when we are at the age where you just grown and want to see grown stuff. And
That's
I know I get tired of watching kids stuff for real.
right,
I'm like, come on, baby.
right.
Let's get on through this child phase,
My youngest is 15 now, so the kid, thankfully, the first challenge is diapers, then it's the kids programming.
the kids program, so you're
But
like
then you
suffering.
got teenage, then you have
Yes,
teenage angst.
yes, but I feel like this is a movie you can watch with anybody. I can watch this with my mom, my dad, and not be embarrassed or like. I mean, I don't really want to be watching this with my parents right now.
That's right.
So I think that's what's also great about the movie. Um, what are some of the things that you think people will take away from this film once they
Sure.
see?
One of the big themes is just because you're suffering from loss, or you may be alone, or dealing with difficulty, doesn't mean you can't have a Merry Christmas. In the finale song, "He Sent Me a King," the line goes, "Grace will come on Christmas Day," and we all need grace any day, but grace on Christmas Day is extra special because you celebrate the birth of the author of grace. So that's exciting, and it's real because you see all the Christmas programming, everyone's happy in all the commercials. I
Mhm.
haven't seen a sad Christmas commercial yet, or a
Mm-mm.
commercial with a sad element.
Mhm.
So, you can feel out of place. Everyone around you in the mall, and the songs are playing and you're alone. So this movie addresses that because there's so many people during the holidays, that's one of the worst times of the year for them because of the emotional challenges that they have. So just because you're going through that, you can still have a Merry Christmas. And also, it's a magical Christmas fairy tale that features beautifully lit Black people, and that's something that I had in the treatment because that's what it is. It's fun to watch. It's beautiful. The costume design, the production design. Shout out the whole team. I mean, everyone did their thing. Cinematography, just we came together and created something that I hope that you all will enjoy tomorrow, Thanksgiving Day, BET Plus. And if you don't have the app, you can get that 7-day free trial and check it out. Sound of Christmas, and other great programming as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, one of the benefits, I mean, there are lots of benefits to hiring black filmmakers, cinematographers, or what have you, is the understanding of how to light black people so that we do look beautiful.
That's right.
And we deserve that because we've suffered so long. I mean, hell, we still are suffering in some people's films.
That's true.
With
That's
the hair and the makeup
true.
and all the things, right? Um,
100%
so that's the other thing I really do like about this film. People look good. People look beautiful. You can actually see them, see their eyes, see the lines, the character, right? That you want to see, and then of course the locations and stuff are beautiful as well. So, before I let you go, real quick, can you talk about filming this in Atlanta, making films in Atlanta, why we have a $10 billion industry, and how
sure.
that is helpful to Black creators?
Sure. And then before we do that, just shout out to cinematographer Matthias Saunders, production designer Kane
Mhm.
Kelly, costume designer Tamara Lee, the visual team. That's the whole visual team. So the director cast the vision, but then the boots on the ground are the people who execute that vision. So shout out to the whole visual team. So Georgia, when I the position at the University of Georgia is what brought me here. That and the film industry in Georgia. So the fact that we were able to shoot here was the fulfillment of one of the things that I set out to accomplish when I came here. And we shot the entire film in 12 days in the Cascade neighborhood of Atlanta, which was a neighborhood that I wasn't familiar with until the shoot. And Ron Robinson, that was his idea as the producer. He's like, all right, and this even evolved because in the script, I had stuff happening on Stone Mountain and all kinds of stuff all over Atlanta. But it kind of evolved to where if the location is not in Cascade, it's not happening because there's just no way you're going to be able to shoot a musical with 12 music cues in 12 days and you're moving all over the place.
Right.
So the two mansions that you'll see in the movie, they're literally right across the court from each other, which is amazing.
And
Uh,
for people who are not from Atlanta, Cascade is an upperly mobile, affluent Black neighborhood in Atlanta. Um,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. And in the script, I changed because in the novel, and most people are familiar with Buckhead. It's a pretty exclusive part of Atlanta. In the novel, the Quentin and his family lived in Buckhead, but once we're in Cascade, I'm like, wow, it's all these mansions and very nice homes owned by African Americans. I'm like, okay, we need to change this and make it Cascade. You know, so yeah, so shout out to Cascade. And yeah, shooting in the city of Atlanta it was really cool. It was my first time shooting, obviously a feature. This is my debut feature length film. So it's very different, shooting a feature than shooting a short. And it was actually nice to be able to just focus on directing and not having to do everything else whenever you're in total control with your independent productions.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So as we wind down, your film, The Sound of Christmas, debuting tomorrow. That is Thanksgiving. We're going to encourage everyone to sit down and watch it with your families. It is a family friendly movie.
Yep.
Everyone can see it, from the littles to the seasoned members of your family. Try not to watch it after you eat though, because it is a feel good movie. So you might nod a little bit, because we don't want to do that after the macaroni and cheese and everything. But I
Are
will.
you making macaroni and cheese, or are you making macaroni and cheese for tomorrow?
I've been invited out, so I'm going to someone's house. But I will have some mac and cheese for the house on Friday. I am black, so yes, there will be some macaroni and cheese and some other stuff, some yams, sweet potatoes, all the things. We're gonna be doing.
Nice. So you make a mean macaroni and cheese?
Absolutely. Come on, Booker. You know how it is. Come on. Look, I'm
Okay,
from
great.
Virginia. I'm from
I
Virginia.
believe it. I believe it. I believe it.
Listen, I'm from Virginia. I'm Beverly's child. So, yeah, I know how to do a whole lot of things. Look, I'm a boss and a domestic goddess.
Look,
Yes.
a boss who can bake. And that has a double meaning too, because you can bake in the kitchen or I'll bake you if you cross the line.
That's right. All day. Don't catch that heat. Catch that
That's right. Don't catch
heat.
that.
Thank you so much, Booker. I really appreciate you for joining us today. Everybody, please watch The Sound of Christmas on BET, any BET platform that you can watch. I think you'll love it. It is a family film, and please follow the career of Booker Mattison, who is doing amazing work and will continue to shine as a filmmaker and author and professor. And I'm sure you'll be into something else soon. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
Happy holidays and vote. Early voting has begun. Vote.